Welcome to a new episode in my home automation OpenHub and Node-RED series. This time I will be looking at how Google Maps can help us with our daily commute. You probably know that Google Maps provides very good driving directions and travel times in traffic. Here I want to show you how you can access this information conveniently during your morning routine. As always, link to the Node-RED flow is in the video description. I want to achieve the following with this video and this integration. Use the Google API to provide estimated travel time. Use this information using multiple origins and destinations and combine them into like a single message. Explore different trigger modes. In this video, I will be mostly showing integration with a phone. So the information is requested from a phone, and the results are also displayed or well actually spoken on the phone. I want to also see if I can get the public transport schedule out of the Google API. I want to put all this logic into Node-RED, and the phone is just going to act as a display device. As I mentioned previously, I want to mainly use text-to-speech on the phone. And I also want to show or just highlight that this text-to-speech functionality is not limited to English only. So the solution looks like the following. As in most of my videos, there is a computer. In my case, it's a Raspberry Pi in the middle, which is running Node-RED, which is going to do most of the integration work. On one side, I have Google that I'm going to use turn to get the travel times and then use their APIs. And of course, on the other end, I have a phone, so I will be triggering all these events from the phone. And in phone, I specifically mean an Android phone, because for the integration, I will be using Tasker, which is, as far as I know, is only available for Android. The whole process starts with a request which is being sent from a phone. So let's say a specific time has arrived, or I click an icon on the phone, and then I send the request to Node-RED saying that, well, basically stating that I need some, travel updates. So next, Node-RED is going to contact Google with some predefined queries that I want to drive from specific locations. It can be a single location or multiple locations, or for example, I need to see what's the arrival time of the next bus at a particular bus stop. The information will be returned by Google. Again, it can be one or many. And then finally, this is compiled by Node-RED, and the data is sent back to the phone. In my case, it's going to be like a simple text, which then the phone can speak out using text-to-speech. Before I start with the Node-RED flow, let's just look at the Google documentation. So I just search for Google Directions API, and this link, the Google Maps Directions API, is the source that I used. And here you can see that there are a few different things you can do. You can use the mode of transport to get driving directions, and also public transports wherever it's available. You can use waypoints if you want to. You have a more complex route, and then you can also specify certain travel times. So Google is trying to use a combination of historical data to predict future the travel conditions and future travel times. So we are going to use this, and first of all, I wanted to go into the travel time, and then here you can you see the entire Google API, and it tells you how you are going, what is the URL that we need to call, and then what is the data that we are going to get back, and then the different parameters that we can pass along to specify our query. So again, the way this Google API works is that we are going to call a specific URL. So it's https maps.googleapis.com/maps/api/directions. Then you need to specify the output format. For Node-RED, I would just use JSON, and then you need to set certain parameters. And these parameters are described in here in detail. And then at the end, there is also a functionality or an option here to test your own code and then see what Google responds. And I think it's here in the sample codes. So you can see, for example, that I want to get driving directions between these two destinations. Then and I want a response back in JSON. So you just put your JSON query origin, your destination, and then destination, and then your destination address, and then at the end you just specify your API key, and the information you're going to get back is here. So I'm not going to go into these details because I'm going to look at my specific example anyway. One important thing, if I go back to the previous one, sorry, with the details, is you need to have an API key. And I think somewhere here there was a link. Oh, it actually is here, to get an API. And then you just click here, and then you specify a project. Of course, you would need to be logged in with your Google account. So you create a project or specify a project, and then you just click here to enable API. And finally, we'll get an API key, which is a long text with different lowercase and uppercase numbers and letters. So that's something that you would need to put into your request. So you can read through this documentation, but most of the things that is relevant for us, I'm going to go through anyway. So let's go through the various examples. And here I have, I set up basically 3 different examples. The first is to get the travel time for, between two addresses. And the next is to use, to double that, so I have 2 set of addresses, and then I will get the travel time for both of them, and I will join this information, and then the end I will get a response which is going to contain both of these travel times. And next one, and the third one, I'm going to use the public transport information to get the, let's say in my example, it's going to be the next tram at a specific stop. I'm going to use the HTTP, I'm going to create an HTTP service or an HTTP address with Node-RED, so my phone can call this address, and then the response is going to be the text that the phone is going to say it aloud at the end. So that's specifically required for the phone integration and the integration with Tasker. But of course, if you need this information to be emailed to you or shown on a dashboard, then you can just use the middle section of this flow and then redirect the end result to like an email or a Twitter or some place on the screen. In the first example, we will have an address, so it's going to be the node address / travel time. So it's a simple HTTP GET. And then once this is called, then the next thing is that we are going to do is we are going to call Google Maps. And for Google Maps, we are going to use this address. So also we are, let me just go back again. So we are going to create an get HTTP request for this method, and all the rest is left as default. And I'm just going to copy in my request here. So as you can see, it's what we have seen on the help file. So it's maps.googleapis.com, sorry, /maps/API/distance matrix /JSON and question mark origins. And here in the origins, you can define where you the start address. And in here, basically, you can type anything which Google Maps accepts. So if I just go to maps.google.com and I type this one here, which actually it accepts even with the plus signs. So this was my address when I lived in the UK some time ago. And so any address that you type here, you can use this as an origin. It can be an address, or it can be, you know, part of an address, or maybe in the UK it's just a postcode, or it can be the name of a point of interest. Anything that Google accepts here in maps.google.com is going to be good enough for the API. So we started this one, and in the URL, obviously, we can't use spaces, so just use plus sign instead of spaces wherever you would add space. So here I specified the full address, so house number, street, city, and the postcode as well, and the destination is well, actually I left the space in here. The destination is going to be another address, which used to be a workplace for me for a time, and so that's the origin and the destination. So these are the two addresses, and you can have multiple destinations if you have like a waypoint or something. Again, just go back to the Google documentation to see how they need to be formatted properly. Next one is the API key. So this is the key that gets generated, and that's my particular API key. And the next parameter, so all the parameters are just like in any other HTTP request, are separated by the end sign. So the mode is driving, so we want to have driving directions. The unit is metric because I want to get, let's say, the distance in kilometers instead of miles. And very importantly, we have to provide this last one, which says departure underscore time equals now. So this, what this tells Google is, I want to get like a driving direction, but I also want to get driving direction based on the traffic which is now at the moment. And if I copy this whole URL into my browser, then we can actually see how it looks like. So Google is going to respond with the destination and the origin address. So so the service actually managed to find this address, and then it's going to offer me the driving direction, and then that response is going to look like this. So we have a rows object, and then within that elements objects, and within that elements we have a distance. So this is going to be 19.6 kilometers, and the duration is going to be 23 minutes. And then there is a separate one, which is the duration in traffic, which is also 23 minutes. And if I omit the last parameter, which is this one, the departure time equals now, then this duration in traffic is not going to be shown. So just make sure that you set that one. I usually set it now, so whenever I run this service, then it's just going to give me the travel time based on the traffic situation right now. But of course, you can set it to like a future time as well, and Google will make a best guess of, well, the best estimate what the traffic is going to look like in that time. So that is really, really straightforward actually, and it's not a really complicated response. So once this response comes back, you will see that response in the output of this node. Of course, it is because it's a JSON node, we need to use the JSON node to convert it to a JavaScript object, and within the and after the JavaScript object, I just use this very simple function node to convert this information to a human readable text. So it's going to say that driving time to work is, and then message.payload rows 0 elements rows 0, because as you can see, this is an array which it has one item in this case. So it's row 0 and element 0, again one element, and then duration in traffic. So I want to get the duration in traffic, and within that I just interested in the text. And at the end, I just do replace minutes with minutes, so it gets it sounds better when it's getting pronounced using text-to-speech. So, and then the end result, that text is getting redirected to the HTTP request. So if I test this one, so it's called travel time. Driving time to work is 23 minutes. The same information that we get back here, it's getting sent through this flow. So simple as that. And we are going to see how that information can be used to display it on the phone. Let's assume that you always want to know the driving directions to two different places. So for example, in my case, I just have one for the kindergarten and also another one for my wife's workplace. But in this case, I just here I use the same, how much it takes for that Ealing address to get to Uxbridge, and the other one is to Ealing to the to Heathrow. And so both of these nodes are going to return a JSON address like this one, sorry, a JSON message like that. And I'm going to put this into a special payload. So I'm going to call this payload a work, and the topic as work, and the payload I'm going to put the same text in what I've just used before. So it's going to say like 23 minutes. And the one which comes out of the second one, I'm just going to call it topic, the topic airport, and I would use exactly the same one, same way to get the data out. Of course, the format which comes back from Google Maps is going to be exactly the same. And I'm going to join them together using the key value object. And I'm also going to say that I only expect 2 messages. So after the second message arrives, the information comes out of the join node, and in here, another function node, I can just put that together into a nice readable format again. So the driving time to work is that, and that's going to say 24 minutes. And to Heathrow T5, it is, I don't know, 35 minutes. So I can just easily reference that by message payload and dot the topic, and again message payloads dot topic, because as I said, the join node is going to join these separate messages using the key value, put them into an object using the key values as the topic and the message. Yeah, and then you're going to use the topic as the key. So again, that's an easy way to get multiple travel destinations or multiple travel times, and then just put them in one single message. So the next one is going to get the driving directions, and that's going to be a little bit tricky. So if I look at this API, call, it looks something like this. So it's maps.googleapis.com/maps/API/directions. So we are not using the driving matrix. Again, the response is going to be JSON. And then for origins and destinations, I'm going to use this place ID. So in this example, I just wanted to use something which is close to me. So I picked up this tram stop, which I know that there are several, as you can see, there are several tram lines that use this tram stop. So I just wanted to see what's the next tram, which is heading towards the city center from this stop. And so I know that I have this stop, and the next one is probably going to be this. And in here in Node, when you create the API call, you need to use this place ID. And funny thing is that you have something like a stop ID here, but that's not exactly the place ID. What I found out is you can use the name of the stop and then find it here in the place ID. But it only works once you are actually zoomed into the particular area where the actual stop is. And this enter location doesn't work as a search, and there is no button like where to center the map based on your location. So actually you have to manually go into the place where your stop is, and then sufficiently zoom in, so hopefully there's no other places of interest or anything else which is named pretty much the same, and then you can enter the destination and find it. Okay, so that's the Okay, so that's my tram stop, and you probably noticed that in Google Maps that you have actually 2 stops for each direction. What I have found out that they are actually the same places in terms of the place ID. So I know that this is the stop which goes into the city, but it shows me this one, but actually they are the same. So they work exactly the same. So you centered on this one, and I shows you the place ID. So you copy this place ID, and that's what you put into your origin. And then here in origin equals, and then place underscore ID colon, and then you place the paste the place ID here. And then the destination is again, it's pretty much the same. So you put place ID and the ID of the place. Just like before, you need an API key. So I put the API key next, and then and mode equals transit, because we are interested in public transports. Units, again, metric, and transit mode. I know that this is a tram stop, so I just wanted to make sure that it's only offering me the only looking for trams. So I just also set transit mode equals tram. Again, you can go back to the Google documentation and you can find the different areas, so like trams and bus and trains and some other stuff here. And again, departure equals now. So if I copy this and I put it into the Google API, or put it into just like any browser, then again we can see the response, and it looks quite a bit different. There's a lot more information, and you also get a lot more information when you usually execute a query like this in Google Maps, because there are so many. You might have a walking section, and then you take a bus, and then the next bus. So all this information needs to be catered within the this response. But what I have found just going through this is it offers you routes, and then within those routes you have legs, and then within the legs you also have steps, and in that you also have transit details. And what I interested about is the arrival time. So that would be the arrival time or departure time um, of the bus or the tram or something. And you can even see the hat sign. So let's say it found a tram for me, which is going between these two stops, and the tram is traveling to this destination. So that's going to be shown on the headboard on the tram. And then what's more important for me is that within the lines there is a short text, and that's in my case 56. So that's tram 56, which is going to stop next in that in that stop, and it's going to leave at 2:58. So 2:58 p.m. So at the moment it's 2:57. So that's going to arrive in the stop in 1 minute. It's going to head towards this, and that's the end of the line, and that's line number 56. And actually, that's pretty much I wanted. So what I was really interested about is that if I want to, make the next tram, I have to be there at this time, and the next tram is going to be number 56. So again, just set up your origin and destination in a way that it gives you the trams origin. Just using the origins and the destinations, you can just force the Google Maps to pre-select the routes and the trams that you are really interested in. And I think in my example, I just selected the two, one stop and the next stop on the line. So it really just looks at all the trams which are traveling on that particular route, or that section of the route. Processing this information is pretty much what we have seen above. So we need to convert the data into JSON, and then we need to parse this information. And that's slightly bit complicated here, just because there is a lot more data in the response. So in that particular case, I would just say that the next tram is number, and then the tram number is in message payload route 0, leg 0, step 0, transit details, line, and short name. And then leaving at, and then message payload routes 0, leg 0, step 0, transit details, departure time, text. So it's actually arriving at that stop, but that's the information that I wanted. So that's piece of text and the the name of the tram here. And as you can see, well, it's when you do the same kind of query in Google Maps, you can get multiple options, and then it also shows you later travel times. But unfortunately, this particular API only gives you the next one. So I couldn't get the information like, okay, what's going to be the next tram after this and after that and after that, like the signs that you usually see on the stops. So that's something that I might need to investigate in the future. But to be honest, I'm not traveling with public transport at the moment. So I was just, getting this much information was enough for me, at least for now. And now let's see how it gets integrated with the phone. So as I said, I'm going to use Tasker for this specific exercise. And I've created a few examples here. And all of these examples are going to look exactly the same. And the first one I'm going to do, I'm going to come to these task tabs and I'm going to create some tasks. And the first one is the simplest one is this one, which is just going to call Node-RED and then get the travel time and then say that aloud. So the first one is an if statement. And by the way, the if statement is under, so if you just press plus, it's under Tasker, and it's not under task. It's always so difficult to find is task and if. And what you can do in Tasker is say that I want to use an if, and then for the condition or the variable, I'm going to use the Wi-Fi I. So that's the Wi-Fi information. And because it's a variable, you just have percent Wi-Fi I. And the operator is matches. And you put your Wi-Fi name in between stars, because this Wi-Fi information contains a lot. It's like a long string which contains a lot of information, like your Wi-Fi, whether the Wi-Fi is on, whether the Wi-Fi is connected, what is the SSID of the network is connected. So the only reason I'm using this if statement because I want to know whether I am at home. So if I'm using my home internet access, because that also determines how I can access the Node-RED. So the second one is to create an HTTP GET, and you get it. So that's under net. So net and HTTP GET here. And here you specify that address that you just created here in Node-RED. So in my case, it's going to be this one. Well, actually, I've created these for this video, but I have some other ones for my particular travel requests as well. So the address is going to be HTTPS because I put the Node-RED into the secure port. I'm using a self-signed certificate. So it's https://username and password. Again, if you have username and password set for Node-RED. So, and then at the local IP of your Node-RED /1880, that's the Node-RED port. And then in the path, you specify whatever you have created here. So in this particular case, it's going to be travel time. But for me, it's from home. And the only other thing I do is write at the end, which says trust certificate, because it's a self-signed certificate. And the second one is say, which is under alert. It's here, say. And the text that comes back from a Node-RED is going to be put into the HTTPD, which stands for HTTP data variable. So you just say /HTTPD, and then I left everything on default. And if I start this one, you can see it triggers the HTTP. Okay, and I'm not sure it was loud enough.
Driving time to Betamax C is 14 minutes.
Okay, so it's set the driving times to something is 14 minutes. Let's say you want to have a button on your screen, so you can just click this one, and then the travel directions will be spoken out loud. And I especially like this and the whole speech integration, because it looks quite quick, but sometimes it takes like, 5 or 6 seconds. So it's just better to just, click a button, just wait a little bit, and then you will hear.
Betamax C is 14 minutes.
Yeah, so you will hear the results after a couple of seconds. So this is what I have done. That can be done quite easily as well. So if you can add a new widget, and once you install Tasker, then Tasker comes up in your list of widgets here, and then you select the task shortcut. You drop it on the place where you want to stop it, or where you want to place it, and then you select the task that you want to trigger with this one. So I think I said travel time from home, and yes, and then here you can also select an icon which should be used for that particular for that icon, sorry, for the shortcut. And I have two, so I'm just going to remove one. So the one thing, the one way to trigger it is just to have an icon that you can quickly tap on the screen. The other one is if you have used, if you have used Tasker, is that within the profile you can have different ways to trigger it. And I have another video where I'm asking my phone to tell me various stuffs whenever I unlock the screen, or whenever I unlock the screen the first time in the morning. Maybe what can be a better example is that you know that you are traveling. You are usually leaving between like 6:30 and 7:15. So you might want to set up your phone to automatically tell you the travel time every 15 minutes within that period, and you can do that as well in Tasker, because you can select a time, and within certain times you can say that every, let's say, 15 minutes I want this thing to trigger. So this is what I've created here, from 6:30 to 7:15 every 15 minutes, and then you select the task that you want to trigger. I just turned it off because it's not something that I actually want to use. So I just trigger this second one, which says travel hun. And I actually want to talk about this one because I've created this for one specific reason, just to say that Google is not limited to, or this text-to-speech is not limited to English only. So I wanted to have an example where I say something in Hungarian. So all I have done is within the say action, in the engine voice, I just set the default, I just say default :HU. So it's going to talk in Hungarian instead of English. And if I trigger,
Utazási idő a Vitamaxig 14 perc, a T-Systemsig 10 perc.
Then you see, you hear the results in Hungarian, and actually it is using this this method here because it was giving me two travel times, one to the kindergarten and the other one is my wife's work, and it's nice. Oh, and actually I've also added this notify HTTP, so you also get a notification for the same. So it's good. The other thing I also wanted to show is one more neat thing that you can do with this particular flow. So what I have done here is the flow starts pretty much the same as it did before. So it checks whether I have the Wi-Fi signal, and if I have the Wi-Fi, it connects, it executes this HTTP GET, so it gets the travel time, and if I'm not on my home network, which means I'm usually not at home, then I execute a different HTTP GET, which obviously would have the external address of my Node-RED system, but in case it's going to execute something else, which is called the travel time 2. And what I was able to do here is, when I'm at home, it's going to tell me the travel times to, let's say, workplace, and in the second one, when I'm not at home, it's going to tell me the travel time to home. Of course, with some assumed locations. So it's not going to use the actual phone locations, but let's say It's just a good assumption that, if I'm not home, then probably I at work, and if I call this functionality, I just want to find out how long it takes to get to home. So that's what I used here. For me, the end result of this video is that using Node-RED flows to set up an integration like this is really, really simple. Working with Google API is again very straightforward, and the information which is provided by Google is also very self-explanatory. Integrating these two services, while integrating Node-RED with the phone using Tasker with some HTTP request is also very simple, and using the text-to-speech functionality within Tasker and the Android phone is again very easy to access. There is a lot more information in the Google API which can be also used in a voice response. For example, in my case, I only talked about travel time, but you can also get the travel distance, so you would know if the Google is offering like a vastly different route, but most probably you can tell that from the time as well. I found that using the Google API, it's not possible to get the public transport schedule for future dates. So far I was only able to get the next bus or the next tram at a particular stop, which is again nice, but if you want to, if you're used to those displays which shows the next 5 buses or 5 trams, then that's not something that I was able to do. Still, I think it was a useful video. At least this is something that I'm using in my everyday life. I hope you liked this video. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next episode.